Hello, everyone. This is the 90th episode of the Soccer Nostalgia Talk Podcast. As always, this is Sean from Los Angeles and the Soccer Nostalgia blog, and I am joined by Paul from Shipley in England and the 1888 Letter blog. For this episode, we welcome back Mr. Joško Čučuk as we discuss the Croatian national team matches during the 1995-96 season and the 96 Euros. Hello, Yoshko. It's been a couple of years. Good to have you back. How are you?
Hello, Shannon. Well, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Yoshko, can you take us back to the fall of 1995 and the state of the Croatian national team and Croatian football in general?
Well, I can try. In the fall of 95, after we lost the match, after that defeat in Kiev versus Ukraine, situation wasn't like a few months before of that when we expected, 10 wins and in 10 qualification matches with the goal difference plus 40. We are always very modest. Uh, but still, we were aware that in the worst case scenario, we will finish second in that group. Ukraine didn't perform very well in those qualifications, and we expected that will be the biggest rival of Croatia. We expected that we will fight for a second place with them. Italy was when qualification started. We expected that Italy, of course, will win that group. But with all of those results which we had, we were we expected that fall that it will be very easy. Last three matches with Estonia, then we had at Italy, and at the end Slovenia, our neighbors, which we always like to beat. Till the end of those qualifications, the most important match was that home match with Italy, where we needed to confirm that Palermo wasn't accident and that there is a new force in European football, which we assumed that we are after Yugoslavia fall apart. Uh, in the same time, our club football needed confirmation also after a great season of Hajduk Split and those quarterfinals of Champions League with Ajax that year, winner of Champions League. Unfortunately, the things didn't go as we expected. That summer in August, we had a big military operation where Croatian army managed to liberate 70% of occupied territory. But after that, because of the fear of the war activities, UEFA didn't allow Hajduk Split to play in Split, since Split was very near that war activity zones. So instead of that, our qualification match with Panathinaikos, we played in Rijeka on small stadium Kantrida of our rival FC Rijeka. So after the match in Athens, where it was 0-0, we played 1-1 over there in Rijeka, and that was beginning of the end of that great Hajduk Split team. So they lost also. That was the end of domination of Hajduk Split in Croatian football in those early 90s. In UEFA Cup, we had Osijek, which was also eliminated in preliminary round by Slovan Bratislava 6-0 aggregate. While in Cup Winners' Cup, we didn't have any club since Croatia Zagreb or Dinamo Zagreb, who needed to represent Croatia in that competition, got a fine a year before. We mentioned that match with Auxerre last time, I think. So they had 1 year without any European competitions if they qualified for it. So they were excluded from the competition. So European season for Croatian clubs ended before it started. And the most successful Croatian club in Europe that season was Zagreb, who finished third in his group of Intertoto Cup, behind Metz and Lask Linz, and in front of Patrick Tisdale from Scotland and Keflavik from Iceland. So they were the only team with one win. that season. So horrible season for the clubs, but we expected a good season for our national team.
And to remind everyone, the previous season had been largely positive for the national team. And of course, the 2-1 win in Italy had made Europe take notice. And you've suggested that there was quite a lot of confidence. Did people generally believe that the Euro qualification was going to be a formality from now on?
Well, it's hard to say. We expected that we will be in one of those first two positions. We expected that it will be a formality, but we needed to confirm ourselves in the world football map with in that match with Italy, because Italy, as you know, played the finals of the last World Cup in '94 with Brazil. So after that win in Palermo in Italy, we needed that confirmation. So we hope that we will win. So yes, that was the most important match. We didn't see really Estonia and Slovenia like our rivals. We expected 6 points from those matches, but Italy was the thing which we were preparing it for.
So the first match of the season, the first qualifier, was on September 3rd against Estonia at Zagreb. So for this match, we have the following lineup. And let's remind everyone that Croatia is managed by Miroslav Blažević, who recently passed away. We have Dražan Ledić in goal from Croatia Zagreb. He's replaced by Marijan Mrmić of Varteks Varazdin in the 30th minute. Mladen Mladenovic of Casino Salzburg in Austria. Robert Jarni, who joined Real Betis in Spain in the offseason. Igor Štimak of Hajduk Split. He replaced by Jeva Turkovic of Croatia Zagreb in the 82nd minute. Nikola Yerkan of Real Oviedo in Spain. Slaven Bilic of Karlsruhe in Germany. He replaced by Nenad Praliha of Hajduk Split in the 74th minute. Making his international debut, Mario Stanic of Club Brugge in Belgium. And Robert Posinecci, he joined Barcelona in Spain in the offseason. Captain of the team, Zvonimir Boban of AC Milan. Davor Šuker of Sevilla in Spain. And Alan Boksic of Lazio in Italy. So this match was a formality. Croatia won 7-1. Mladenovic scored in the 3rd minute. Estonia tied the match in the 17th minute through a free kick from Martin Reim. And Šuker scored a penalty kick 2 minutes later. He also scored in the 58th and the 90th minute. Boksic scored in the 29th minute. Boban in the 42nd, and Stimac in the 81st minute. So probably the easiest match of the season for Croatia that year. Let's discuss the new international, Mario Stanic. How is he viewed by Croatian football historians?
So, to be honest, in his early years in our national team, he was just some guy who will fill the empty spot on our right wing back. He had one good season in Croatia Zagreb or Dinamo Zagreb, where he arrived from Željezničar Sarajevo in the middle of the war. After that, he left to Sporting Gijón, where he was out of radar of Croatian football. But then good season in Benfica bring him back, so he was back on the map. And after that, he went to Belgium, where he became really established like a great scorer and great striker. In that moment, we had Davor Šuker, Alen Boksic, Goran Vlahovic, Igor Cvitanovic, and probably few more players in front of him for two positions in our attack. The thing with Ciro Blažević, our selector, who recently passed away, unfortunately, was known for playing fast strikers, usually on wing backs. So he had done that in Dinamo Zagreb in 1982, also when he became a Yugoslavian champion after lots of years without championship. And he was doing the same thing in all of his teams where he worked. On the left side, we had Robert Jarni, and till Stanic got a chance on the right wing back and became standard starting 11. Ciro was trying on that position with some other strikers as Ivica Mornar from Hajduk Split and Nikola Jurčević from Casino Salzburg. Jurčević was a usual starter before Stanic took his place. Let's say after Euro 96, although he played very well on that competition as well. So Stanic is very polyvalent player who could step in on lots of positions. When you mention Stanic, you're thinking on a right wing back on that national team, Croatian national team, that generation. But there was lots of matches where he played as a second striker or attacking midfielder for our national team, especially if one of those three main midfielders were absent, like Boban, Prosinečki, or Asanovic, when you have one of those who are missing, or if you're playing with some defensive midfielder like Mladenovic, who jumped in frequently, and after him Soldo, he would be one of those front midfielders, Stanic. So sometimes if we are playing, for example, I think with Italy, we played with a more defensive right wing back, and then Stanic would also play. He would play as attacking midfielder. We had on that position, we had Elvis Brajkovic or Mladen Mladenovic, Dario Šimić later on, etc. But anyway, at the beginning we didn't have much trust on his abilities when Ciro Blažević let's say, gave him a chance, but after it, he became one of the most popular and one of the most important players, since we really didn't have any right wing back in that moment, and we played 3-5-2, which was a standard system which that Croatian national team played.
Now we come to the home match with Italy. Was there apprehension ahead of this match, or had the previous season's win and the fact that Croatia were now group leaders made it a little less tense?
Well, yes, there was a less tense, since let's say that we almost qualified already. Well, but that didn't change much. Since we saw that like opportunity to prove ourselves versus finalists of the World Cup and to establish our position on the map of the world football. So it didn't change much. Anyway, we were waiting after draw for those European qualifications. That was the match which we waited the most, with that in Palermo in Italy, the first one which we won.
So this match was at Split on October 8th, and it would be a dramatic match. For this match, Croatia started with Ladic, Nikola Jurčević of Casino Salzburg in Austria. He'd be replaced by Arjan Kozniku of Cannes in France in the 46th minute. Mladen Mladenovic, Stimac, Yerkan, Dubravko Pavlicic of Hercules Alicante in Spain, Alyosha Asanovic of Real Valladolid in Spain, Stanic, Boban, captain of the team, Štuker, and Boksic. For Italy, a lot of familiar faces. We have Ciro Ferrara, Paolo Maldini, Albertini, Zola, Del Piero. A good side managed by Arrigo Sacchi. In the 9th minute in this match, Italian goalkeeper Luca Bucci would be sent off after he handled right outside the box. So Zola was replaced in the 10th minute by Francesco Toldo, Fiorentina's goalkeeper. Incidentally, Italy, with one less man, took the lead in the 29th minute when Dimitri Albertini, scored with an indirect free kick. However, Croatia, early in the second half, in the 47th minute, earned a penalty kick when Toldo fouled Boksic, and Davor Šuker scored an ensuing penalty, and the match ended as a 1-1 tie that satisfied both teams. And more or less the group was done at this point. But it was a tense, fiery atmosphere in the stadium. If you've seen the highlights, what are your memories?
Yeah, I remember that match very freshly. Still, that was the first big match on our home field, since we expected that that match with Ukraine will be also very important, but at the end we beat them very easily. But this was the match which we expected the most. Atmosphere was really beautiful. It was full stadium, and from the beginning, maybe 2 hours before that match, the stadium was already full. You could hear singing 2 hours before and after the match when we celebrated the qualifications for that Euro. Uh, at the end, it was more friendly match after, since both teams were really satisfied with the score. We were not completely satisfied, since after Italy was got to that red card, we expected that we will win, of course. Yes, at the end, both teams were satisfied with result, and we were waiting for that match with the last match in the group with our neighbors Slovenia to just to confirm that first place in the group.
Yes. And that last match was on November 15th at Ljubljana. For this match, which was more or less inconsequential, you have Croatia starting with Ladic, Jurcevic, Jarni, Zvonimir Soldo of Croatia Zagreb, Yerkan, Bilic, Praliha. He'll be replaced by Mladenovic in the 62nd minute. Prosinecci. In Boban's absence, Šuker was the captain. Stanic and Ivica Mornar of Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany. So in this match, Slovenia took the lead in the 36th minute through Primoz Gliha. But 5 minutes later, in the 41st minute, Davor Šuker again scored with a penalty kick. And in the 55th minute, Nikola Jurcevic scored the winner. Croatia won the group and finished a fine campaign, with the only blemish was the loss against Ukraine at the end of the season, the end of the previous season. Would you remember how the Euro qualification was celebrated in Croatia? And we must remind everyone that at this point, Croatia is still a young footballing nation. And in fact, this was the first qualifiers since independence that Croatia had been involved in.
So we didn't celebrate it much, since that was something that we expected when we saw the group after the draw for those qualifications. At the beginning of that qualification cycles, we were a bit worried, since we got the group with the finalist Italy, the finalist of the previous World Cup in US, Italy and Ukraine, which we saw as a small Soviet Union, and you know what the Soviet Union meant for European football in the 80s. But after Ukraine didn't perform well at the beginning of those qualifications, soon we saw that we are probably, well, the only candidate with Italy to go to that Euro 96. So we didn't really celebrate it. Well, we expected in the next few months that we will prepare. We had high hopes for that Euro 96. I remember Ciro Blažević was in newspapers, on all of his interviews, he would mention that we will become European champion, and that we are the best in Europe. And we really trusted in that, and we really had a good team. Not all team was perfect, but there is not much teams in the world that had those two strikers like Šuker and Bokšić, which they meant a lot in European football in those years. Then we had a really great middle field with some players like Boban and Prosinecki. Also Asanovic was very popular in Croatia, not that much in European football. He never performed well anywhere else except of Hajduk Split. He played for some relatively good European teams, but he was never high profile player like Boban or Prosinecki. Then we had Yarni, so we had a pretty good team. Let's say first 11 of our team were pretty good, and then we didn't have any substitutes. So we expected that we will perform well, and that in next few months, Ciro will give a chance to some other young players which were coming from Croatian league, or they already played in some European clubs.
So obviously Blažević was confident. What do you think was the more realistic expectation for the Euros in England in '96?
Well, at the end we had that. The realistic thing was to pass the group, although we had pretty tough group. So before draw, we expected that at least we will pass the group and we will play quarterfinals, which we did at the end. But after the draw, when we got Denmark, which was champion in '92, and then Portugal with really good generation with Figo, Rui Costa, and all those, Fernando Couto, who was very good player. But anyway, they had a really good team. And Turkey was the only team which we really expected to beat. So we expected that we will, let's say, fight for that second place with Portugal. And Denmark, we expected that they will have a better tournament than they had at the end. So realistic was quarterfinals, but Ciro was mentioning at least finals.
So the year 1996 started, and Croatia played many friendlies to prepare the team, and like you said, give a chance to maybe new players. So the first match was on February 28th at Rijeka against Poland. So for this match, Croatia started with Ladic. He will be replaced by Tonči Gabric of Hajduk Split in the 46th minute. International debutant Daniel Stefulj of Croatia Zagreb. Jarni, he be replaced by Praliha in the 59th minute. Elvis Brajkovic of Munich 1860 in Germany. Yerkan, he replaced by Pavlicic in the 46th minute. Soldo, Alyosha Asanovic, who had joined Hajduk Split by this time. He replaced by another international debutant, Tomislav Rukavina of Croatia Zagreb in the 81st minute. Prosinecki, captain of the team, Boban Stanic. He'll be replaced by Igor Svitanovic of Croatia Zagreb in the 61st minute. Jurcevic, and he'll be replaced by Goran Vlahovic of Padova in Italy in the 46th minute. So Croatia won this match 2-1. Brajkovic scored in the 21st minute. Henrik Baluzhinski tied the match in the 76th minute, and a minute before the end, Igor Svitanovic scored the winner. Next, on March 13th at Zagreb, Croatia hosted South Korea. So for this match, we have Lajdic, he replaced by Gabric in the 87th minute. Soldo, Jarni, Stimac. He'll be replaced by international debutant Darius Simic of Croatia Zagreb in the 72nd minute. Yerkan, he'll be replaced by Praliha in the 64th minute. Slaven Bilic of West Ham United in England. Jurcevic, who had joined at this point Freiburg in Germany. He'd be replaced by Ivica Mornar of Eintracht Frankfurt in the 76th minute. Stanic, he replaced by Svitanovic in the 79th minute. Asanovic, Šuker captaining again in the absence of Boban. Vlahovic, and he replaced by Milan Rapajic of Hajduk Split in the 83rd minute. Croatia won 3-0 with a hat-trick from Goran Vlahovic in the 23rd, 63rd, and 83rd minute. Next, on March 26th, Croatia took on Israel at Varazdin. So for this match, Gabric started in goal. He replaced by international debutant Zelko Pavlovic of Croatia's Zagreb in the 46th minute. Brajkovic, he replaced by another international debutant, Andrija Balajic of Vartex Varazdin in the 46th minute. Igor Stimac, who had playing at this point for Derby County in England. He replaced by Dario Simic in the 78th minute. Soldo, Bilic, Rapajic, he replaced by Pavlicic in the 46th minute. Jurcevic, he replaced by Mornar in the 74th minute. Prosinecki, he replaced by Praliha in the 65th minute. Asanovic, Vlahovic, Robert Spehar of Club Brugge in Belgium, and he replaced by Svitanovic in the 46th minute. So again, this one was a Croatian victory again, 2-0. Stimac scoring in the 74th minute and Vlahovic in the 76th minute. Next, on April 10th, Croatia hosted Hungary at Osijek. So for this match, we have Mrmic starting in goal, Brajkovic, Balajic, Pavlicic, Yerkan, Bilic. He replaced by Miroslav Bicanic of Osijek in the 46th minute. Mornar, international debutant Igor Pamic of Osijek. He replaced by Stefulj in the 77th minute. Stanic, once again, Šuker captaining the team. Svitanovic, and he replaced by another international debutant, Davor Vugrinek of Vartex. So for Stefulj and Brajkovic and Bicanic, this will be their final caps. Brajkovic had made his debut in 94. This was his 8th cap. And Bicanic had made his debut 3 years earlier in 1993. And Stefulj made his debut in a previous match. This match, Croatia won 4-1. Brajkovic scored in the 6th minute. Šuker in the 23rd. Pamic in the 65th. And Stanic in the 75th. And Norbert Nagy scored for Hungary in the 39th minute. So, at this point, Miroslav Blažević has experimented with a number of local players and introduced some new caps in these 4 matches, with Dario Simic really having a long-term impact and a future in this team. Blažević had more or less a settled team, as you have mentioned. Was he just trying out who could make up the numbers at this point?
Yeah, he was trying with lots of those players who established in Croatian Football League. He tried to find, let's say, substitute for Robert Jarni. You had Milan Rapajic over there. We expected better career from him. But at that point, he got a chance to prove himself, and we expected that he will play on that Euro 96, and in next years that he will become more important. In later stages of his career, he played again for our national team, but not in that moment. Next few years, he wasn't very important for our national team. And some other players, like you mentioned, got opportunity. Some young players like Dario Simic, and he was the only one who, let's say, used that opportunity in those few friendly matches, which were not that important, and in perspective of those matches were just give the chance to those new players, find some other players, find some players to have that, let's say, 12th, 13th, 14th player for national team, which we didn't in that moment. We had starting 11, which everyone knew who they are, and then substitutes were not on the same level. So that was the idea of those friendlies to find some, to include some, to give opportunity to include some new players in those in our national team for the next years which are coming.
So 2 weeks later, Croatia traveled to England to face the Euro hosts at Wembley on April 24th. This is an England side with the likes of Stuart Pearce, Steve McManaman, David Platt, Gascoigne, and Teddy Sheringham, Robbie Fowler, preparing for the Euros that much would be expected of them, managed by Terry Venables. So for this match, Croatia started with Bermic, Pavlicic, he replaced by Mladenovic, who at this point had joined Japanese side Gamba Osaka in the 76th minute. Yarni, Stimac, he replaced by Soldo in the 58th minute. Yerkan, Bilic, Asanovic, Prosinecci, captain of the team Boban, he replaced by Stanic in the 46th minute. Stuker, Boksic, and he replaced by Pamic in the 70th minute. The match ended as a scoreless tie. And at this point, Paul, you remember, I'm sure that England were having trouble scoring. You probably would remember the match.
Yeah, it's as you say, England were trying to put together a team that was going to challenge. Obviously, England hadn't qualified for the previous World Cup. The previous Euros had been a bit of a disaster, so it was a long time really since England had been challenging. Venables was trying to bring in some new players. You mentioned McManaman. Robbie Fowler was playing in this game. Steve Stone was one of the players that had a fairly short international career. And I think the main impression of this was that obviously Croatia was still a little bit of an unknown quantity in England, and they were a very impressive team. And I think everyone realised they were going to be, if not challenging for this tournament, that they were going to be strong outsiders, and obviously had real quality in the team. People knew Boban and Prosinecki, maybe Suker a little bit from his goals, but I think it was a real sign that they were going to become a bit of a force in international football. How was this one seen in Croatia, Joško? What was the impression of this game, and did it give Croatia more confidence for the tournament?
Yeah, it did. It did. The result gave us lots of confidence. That was idea when they agreed to play with England. The idea was to see where are we in European football. We needed some big team again before the tournament to play, to see, because England was one of the main favorites for winning that Euros. Although, as you said, you didn't have really good years before. You didn't qualify for those 94 World Cup, and before that, I remember that Euro 92 was really a disaster in that group with Sweden and Denmark, which no one expected that those two teams will pass in the group with France and England. So yes, we used that game really, really well, and that gave us more confidence that we are on the right track, and that we can compete with the best teams in the world. Still on YouTube, you can find dribblings of Robert Prosinecki from that match. So he liked the ball, and the ball would be in his feet just too much. We were always mentioning that he shouldn't play because he just take that ball and dribble and dribble and dribble and dribble and dribble and never pass it in the right moment. but at the end, now it's very nice to see those dribblings from that match. So that match really gave us a confidence, and we went to that Euros full of confidence that we can compete with the best teams in Europe in that moment. And also, we used the opportunity to give a chance to Marian Mrmic, who was a goalkeeper for that match. Dražen Ladic, our first goalkeeper in those years. I can't remember, was he injured or something, but he was in a very bad part of his career in Croatian National League. Uh, he was in big crisis. So we wanted to, supporters of Hajduk Split, the biggest rival of Croatia Zagreb in that moment, wanted Tonči Gabric, who was second goalkeeper, but also Marijan Mrmić, who played for Vartex in that moment. He was really the best goalkeeper in our league, and that we saw also that like opportunity to establish new goalkeeper, because we were not very sure about Ladić performances in those years. Also, although later on, especially in the next World Cup, he was one of our best players. But in that moment, he was in really big crisis.
Croatia's final friendly before the Euros was on June 2nd against the Republic of Ireland at Dublin. So for this match, we have Mrmić in goal. He replaced by Ladić in the 46th minute. Jarni, Jerkan, Stimac, Bilic, Asanovic, captain of the team Boban, Stanic. He replaced by Soldo in the 78th minute. Vlahovic, he replaced by Jurčević in the 71st minute. Boksic and Šuker. So this match ended as a 2-2 tie. Šuker scored in the 15th minute. Keith O'Neill tied the match in the 24th minute. Boban scored in the 45th minute. And Niall Quinn tied the match in the 87th minute. So this was ahead of the Euros. So now we come to Croatia's final 22 for the Euros. We have as number one, Drazen Ladić, number two, Nikola Jurčević, number three, Robert Jarni, number four, Igor Stimac, number five, Nikola Jerkan, number six, Slaven Bilic, number seven, Aljosha Asanovic, number eight, Robert Prosinecki, number nine, Davor Šuker, number 10, Zvonimir Boban, number 11, Alen Boksic, number 12, Marijan Mrmić, number 13, Mario Stanic, number 14, Zvonimir Soldo, number 15, Dubravko Pavlicic, number 16, Mladen Mladenovic, number 17, Igor Pamic, number 18, Elvis Brajkovic, number 19, Goran Vlahovic, number 20, Dario Simic, number 21, Igor Svitanovic, and number 22, Tonči Gabric. Can you discuss the reason Ivica Mornar was cut from the squad? There's a story that he broke curfew to eat a sandwich, and that's why he was cut. Is this story accurate?
Yeah, well, they say it is. It is. Mornar mentioned that a few times on some of his interviews, and also Ciro Blažević mentioned that. The thing about Ciro Blažević was that he was known for that he would choose the victim to practice discipline and to show that he is the boss for the rest of the team. But the interesting thing is that he would always choose some unimportant player who would be removed from the team. And the rules were really not the same for Zvonimir Boban, Robert Prosinecki, Šuker, Boksic. So they could do pretty much whatever they want. They would be never fined for that. But he would always, in next tournament also, or before of that, he also practiced discipline with Nenad Pralija, and later on, before World Cup in '98, he have done the same thing with Igor Cvitanovic. Yes, that story is probably true. It is the truth. But he was just one of those victims of Ciro Blažević, just to prove that he have everything under control.
So we come to the Euros now in England. And as you mentioned earlier, Croatia is in a group with Turkey, Portugal, and Denmark. The first match is against Turkey on June 11th at Nottingham, at the City Ground. So for this match, we have Ladic, Yarni, Stimac, Yerkan, Bilic, Asanovic, Prosinecki, Stanic, Boban. He replaced by Soldo in the 58th minute. Struker, he replaced by Pavlicic in the 89th minute. Boksic, he replaced by Vlahovic in the 73rd minute. So this match, Croatia won with Vlahovic scoring in the 86th minute. So he basically received the ball in the middle of the field and ran all the way and went around the goalkeeper to score. It'd been a hard win, but Croatia were expected to win this match.
Yes, we expected that we will win that match and to have a good start in the tournament. First shock was, I think it was 29th minute when Alen Boksic was injured. Our best or second best striker. In that moment, he had a really good season and we expected much from him. He was injured and Goran Vlahovic replaced him. And then at the beginning, we really were pushing Turkey and we had some chances, but after we didn't score, it was pretty even match. Well, pretty much nothing happened till that goal. And then there was some Turkey attack, and that Aljoša Asanovic got the ball all the way on the right part of our side of the field, and he had a long pass to Goran Vlahovic somewhere in the center, a little bit behind the center of the field, and Vlahovic ran and he passed the goalkeeper and scored a goal for 1-0, and then that was like rock fell from our heart. After that, we had those 3 points which we expected from that match, and we could prepare for the most important match with Denmark, who were defending the title.
The match against Denmark was on June 16th at Sheffield at the Hillsborough. So for this match, we have Ladic, Yarni, Stimac, Yerkan, Bilic, Stanic, Asanovic, Prosinecki. He replaced by Mladenovic in the 86th minute. Boban, he replaced by Soldo in the 82nd minute. Struker, Vlahovic, he replaced by Jurcevic in the 84th minute. So for this match, Croatia would win 3-0. In the 52nd minute, Croatia were awarded a penalty kick after Schmeichel fouled Stanic in the box and Struker scored from spot. Croatia would finish off the match near the end. In the 83rd minute, Struker crossed from the left side and Boban knocked it in. And just before the end, in the 89th minute, this is replayed on Twitter all the time, where Asanovic sends a long cross to Struker on the left side, and he just advances and chips over Schmeichel. And I think even Schmeichel applauds him, I think, after he scored. Croatia basically that as good as advanced after this win. What are your memories?
Yeah, I remember that match, and I remember that chip shot, that lob of Schmeichel. Interesting thing is that Struker tried to lob him maybe a few minutes before that. He tried to lob Schmeichel from the center, and after that so maybe 10 minutes before of that, and then after he managed to lob him again, then Schmeichel applauded him for that really beautiful goal. So after that, we were a little bit afraid of that Denmark before the match, and then after that was with the next quarterfinals. That was probably our best match on that tournament, where we really played well, and Denmark really didn't have any good chances for scoring a goal. So we controlled pretty much the match from the beginning till the end. And then really we started to believe. Of course, Ciro Blažević was mentioning that we will win Euro and that we have a chance, we have the best team in the world, and give us that Brazil, and those kind of sentences. He was known for that in the medias. That's why journalists love him. But we really didn't believe in all of that. We knew that we have a good team, but not that good team. And after that, we really started to believe that we can win that tournament and that we can go pretty far. So yes.
So the next match, the final match in the group, was on June 19th at Nottingham against Portugal. Since Croatia had already qualified, Blažević decided to rest some of the players. For Croatia, we have Mrmić in goal, Simic, Soldo, Bilic, Pavlicic, Jarni, Jurčević, Vlahović, Prosinecki. He'll be replaced by Asanovic in the 46th minute. Mladenovic, he'll be replaced by Boban in the 46th minute. Pamic, and he'll be replaced by Šuker in the 46th minute. This triple substitution was because Portugal had taken a 2-0 lead in the first half. Luis Figo had scored in the 4th minute, and João Vieira Pinto had doubled the lead in the 33rd minute. And Portugal would score a third goal in the 82nd minute through Domingos. It was a weakened Croatian side, but again, they had already qualified, so it was an inconsequential match. Despite that, how was the reaction from Croatian fans for the poor display?
Well, pretty much everyone blamed our selector Blažević because he started that match with technically with the second team. Before that match, he had in the interview before the match, he said, "We need to beat Germany anyway, so give us that Germany in quarterfinals." And at the end, practically he chose that he will play with, or at least we saw that, like he's choosing to play Germany in quarterfinals, since Germany was first in that group. If we finish second, we are playing them. If we finish first, we will play Czech Republic, which in the medias and of our football supporters, we were, of course, wanting to play Czech Republic rather than Germany, which didn't have the best World Cup 2 years before, but still they were one of the main favorites for winning these Euros. So I remember after those he made those triple substitute. Since it's not only that it was 2-0, it could be 7-0. So Portugal really destroyed Croatia in that match. And after that match with Denmark, where we expected that we are one of the favorites now for winning Euros, that was back to reality. After that match, we didn't have that high hopes, especially since we needed to play Germany for the rest of the tournament. So that was like the end before the real end of the tournament. So all of our hopes were. So we were pretty down after that match, not because of the loss, but because of the way how we lost. So practically without any chance to score a goal.
So the quarterfinal against Germany was on June 23rd at Manchester at Old Trafford. Now, this is a German team managed by Berti Vogts that had the likes of Matthias Sammer, Christian Ziege, Andy Möller, Thomas Hessler, Jürgen Klinsmann, and in fact, their own Croatian, Fredi Bobic. So for this match, Croatia started with Ladic, Bilic, Jerkan, Stimac, Jurčević, He'll be replaced by Mladenovic in the 78th minute. In fact, this would be his final cap, his 19th and final cap. His first cap was in the 1990. Boban, captain of the team, Yarni, Asanovic, Vlahovic, Stanic, and Schuker. So Germany took the lead in the 21st minute. Yerkan handled in the box, and Klinsmann scored from the penalty kick. Croatia would tie the match in the 51st minute. Jurcevic basically pressured Freund and took the ball away from him and passed across to Schuker, who went around Kopke to score. But just a few minutes later, in the 59th minute, Matthias Sammer gave Germany the lead, and Germany won this match. And we have to mention a minute before Sammer's winner, Stimac was sent off for tackling Mehmet Scholl from behind. Croatia were out. What was the reaction?
Well, first reactions were we were blaming referee, Swedish referee Sundell, for that loss. Before of that second goal, that Zammer goal, he pushed Robert Jarni and took the ball, and so we expected that he will. We expected that that's foul, so that he will stop the play, but he didn't. So they scored the goal, and that was the final result. But Croatia played pretty well that match, even when we were one player down. So after that, Germany scored for 2-1. We played pretty well. We had some chances, and we almost, I think, few minutes before the end of that match, we had Schuker had a really good opportunity. So we were very near, and we were proud on our team, especially after that match with Denmark, and after that play with Germany, which at the end won the tournament. So we can say that it was for first appearance in the big tournaments as independent nation. It was very successful campaign, although we didn't win it, but we had few really good matches, 2 good matches.
As Sean mentioned, the Euros saw the end of the national team career of Mladen Mladenovic. How's he regarded in terms of Croatian football history?
Well, unfortunately, he is pretty forgotten in the terms of history of Croatian football. The truth is that he passed his peak before Croatian national team established itself on the map of the world football. And he gave his best years to Dinamo Zagreb in late 80s. He played for Rijeka later on in early years of Croatian Football League. But we are forgetting how good and important he was for Casino Salzburg, a pretty successful club in European competitions in those years. Anyway, his main position was defensive midfielder, and he played in the era where we had really packed midfield with talent. So it's understandable that he didn't have much appearances like maybe he would have if Croatia existed the years before. When in 80s he was really he was, let's say, on the edge of Yugoslavian national team. He never played, but he was always mentioned like a player who could get a chance in Yugoslavian national team in late 80s, since Dinamo Zagreb was pretty successful and always near Crvena Zvezda, which was a long-term champion in the last years of Yugoslav football.
Now, analyzing the Euros, as far as the foreign press, I seem to remember they were generally impressed by Croatia's performances. Were the Croatian public conscious of the fact that the foreign press had taken notice of them?
Yeah, we knew that. We knew that in all of our newspapers you had some articles from some European newspapers, and we knew that now the world know for us, and that they see us like a new, not the force, but a new team which you have to count on in next years of the world football.
And in closing, at the end of this season, what was the general view regarding the state of Croatian football and what were the prospects for its future?
Well, we were satisfied with that tournament, and we expected more in the next years. So idea was when we saw after the draw for the next World Cup, we saw the group and we expected that we will be on the next World Cup easily, which didn't happen. It wasn't any easy to qualify there. We didn't expect that we will be that successful like we were on that World Cup, but we saw us like a team that will compete in next years, that we will compete frequently on all of those big competitions like European Championships and the World Cups. And we expected that some new players will get a chance, and that we will find some really good players that will substitute those players who are not in their best years. Like, for example, Jerkan, one of his last appearances was in this Euros. So we needed to substitute those players who are getting old and near the end of their career.
And the likes of Schuker were rewarded with a move to Real Madrid in the offseason. So
yeah, at the end of that season,
things were looking rosy for Croatian football, we can say. Yes. With that, I'd like to thank you for participating in this series. As always, for everyone, feel free to leave questions and comments. You may contact me on my blog and on Facebook under Soccer Nostalgia. On Twitter, I'm at SP1873. Mr. Paul Whittle can be contacted at 1888 Letter on Twitter, and his blog is the 1888 Letter. You may also follow the podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, and Stitcher, all under Soccer Nostalgia Talk Podcast. Please leave a review, rate, and subscribe if you like the podcast. And Mr. Čučuk's contact info has also been provided. And all this information is on the blog and podcast uploads. So, Joško, thank you again. And looking forward for the next season, 96-97, whenever we get to it.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joško.